Hey VC, it's Maria here, and I'm going to shoot my second video for the vinyl community, and this time I'm going to show my vinyl. But before I get into that, I just want to say thank you to all of my new subscribers. You guys are just great. I read all your comments, and your feedback was just very positive and uplifting, so I thank you for that. So without further ado, let's get into the vinyl. I have 25 albums I'm going to show, and these are all my favorites. And by that, I just mean to say that I like the whole album. I can't pick one single track off here, but if I had to, I'm sure I could. So I'm going to start off with Ice House. This is the self-titled album, released in 1981. You can't really see much. You need a magnifying glass to be able to read the song titles off this album. Canadian band, Red Rider, Neruda. And if you want to check this album out, the song to maybe check out would be Light in the Tunnel or Human Race. Another Canadian band, Streetheart, Meanwhile Back in Paris. Now this is the band that Paul Dean and Matt Frenette were a part of before they went on to join Mike Reno for Loverboy. And the track on here to check out would probably be Action. That seemed to be the most popular on the album. Next we move on to Streetheart, Drugstore Dancer. And again, Drugstore Dancer would be the track to maybe check out. That or Tin Soldier or Trouble, which are the three songs that got a lot of airplay back in the day. Now we move on to Genesis, Abacab. I'm a big Genesis fan. I love all of their stuff. But this is just one that I have in the collection, and one where all the songs on it are just really good. My favorite Genesis album, the self-titled. My favorite track on this would have to be Silver Rainbow, but the whole album is really good. So now we move on to Invisible Touch. This has, I believe, 8 tracks on it. And I like the album so much I went out and I bought the cassette. The Who, Face Dances. This also comes with a poster, which is right here. But this also came with a Pink Floyd poster. I'll just quickly fold it out for you there. I was planning on taking it to a frame shop and getting it mounted, but I don't think they're going to be able to do very much with it. It's been folded. I don't think it's going to look all that great once you put it in frame, so I'm not going to do it. Next we move on to Pete Townsend, Empty Glass. This is the album that has the song Let My Love Open the Door on it. But this is one of my favorite albums, I guess you could say. I do have another one, but this is probably my favorite Pete Townsend album. Pete Townsend, All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes. And those are the songs there. And my favorite song off this album would be Uniforms. The Fix, Reach the Beach. I'm sure everybody knows this album. This whole album is really good. And I thought it was so good I had to buy the cassette. Split Ends, Time and Tide. Another album where it's good from beginning to end. This is the album that has the song 6 Months in a Leaky Boat. And Dirty Creature. Cheap Trick, Heaven Tonight. On the Radio and Heaven Tonight would have to be my favorite tracks off this album, but this is the album that got me started with my Cheap Trick collection. Iron Maiden, Summer in Time. This is a really good album. Alexander the Great is my favorite track off this album, if I had to pick a favorite. This album, thing about Alexander the Great is it gives you a history lesson about Alexander the Great, which is pretty cool, I always thought. Live After Death. Double album, again by Iron Maiden. I need to get an upgraded copy of this album because there's some scuff marks on it, and no matter how many times I clean it, I can't get it to look the way I want it to, and it doesn't sound that great either. Now we move on to Kiss, Alive 2. You gotta love an album cover that kind of freaks out your parents. My mom didn't like this album, and she wouldn't let me play it on her stereo. She thought it was demonic. I mean, looking at Gene Simmons, can you blame her? Tamer stuff. Now we move on to Joe Jackson, I'm the Man. I like this whole album, but my favorite track on it would have to be On the Radio. Pardon me, On Your Radio. Listen Like Thieves by INXS. Again, this is a really good album. If you're not familiar with this, the tracks to maybe check out would be Listen Like Thieves and Same Direction and What You Need. And there's a picture of the band on the bottom. Loverboy, Keep It Up. Really good album. Chance of a Lifetime is my favorite track off this album. And Paul Dean, Matt Fournette from Streetheart. Duran Duran, Rio. I can't say I've heard this entire album, but I am familiar with two of the tracks. Hungry Like the Wolf and Rio. And when I get a new turntable, I will be listening to this album in its entirety. Now this one I am familiar with, because I did have this album when it was first released. Duran Duran, Seven and the Ragged Tiger. I think this whole album is really good. New Moon on Monday was my favorite track off this album, but the whole album is just really good. Roger Hodgson, In the Eye of the Storm. This is his first solo release after leaving Supertramp. This album only has 7 tracks on it, but my favorite one off this album would have to be the first one, I Had a Dream, Sleeping with the Enemy. Now, every time I looked at this always kind of reminded me of a Half-Eaten Jawbreaker, if you remember those. That's what that reminds me of. Foreigner 4. Good album. Really good album. Jukebox Hero was my favorite track off this album. And this album also came with a poster that looked just like this. This one doesn't have it. Big Country. The Crossing. Really good album. When it was first released, I don't think too many people liked the album, but I liked it. And I had a friend who tried to talk me out of buying this album, but thankfully she didn't win. I did buy the album, and when I played it right through, I discovered that Chance was my favorite track off this one. Now we're going to go on to the 25th album, and this is John Cougar, American Fool. Everyone knows the song Jack and Diane, which of course is from this album. And this is the album that started me on with John Cougar. I started buying more of his stuff after I heard this album. And I discovered that I think the second album I bought from John Cougar was Scarecrow. And again, that whole album I thought was really good. So that's it. That's all of my vinyl. And if you want to see the hard rock and heavy metal, it's over here on CD or it's on cassette. If you want to see the CDs, leave me a comment. If you want to see it on cassette, again, just leave me a comment and I will be more than happy to share either of those with you. So for now, that is it, and I will post another video soon. Hopefully it won't take as long as it did this one. So I hope you all have a good night, and I hope your week goes really well. So with that, I'm going to say good night.